This last section I intend to be really interactive, partly because we're all at the slump in the afternoon, right? A little bit. But it's been really rich. I didn't plan to have so much pop-up hands and responses, but it's really a gift that you give me and you give to each other. I want to think about, been moving to think a little bit about the work of transfiguring wounds. I said refiguring in the promotional material, but I really want to think about keeping in the texture of wounds and scars. The interesting thing about the Caravaggio painting is that Thomas is plunging his finger into the wounds, right? It's very visceral. The Gospel of John text never says whether Thomas touches the wounds. Interesting, right? Thomas is invited to touch, but the theological imagination has filled in a lot in terms of what this scene really looks like, right? We presume that Thomas does, but I think that interesting space between kind of Thomas and how much he's engaging, how close or visceral is that touching, I think is really important to some, right? To hold on to that enfleshed encounter. But I'm thinking about transfiguring, trans as moving across wounds, as the work of honoring and recognizing the marks that remain in life, but also to see these wounds or marks as transfigured, right? As changed. And I see three dimensions to this. And I really thank the gentleman for thinking about your reflections on the Boston Marathon, but also the comment that you made about the challenge of imagining a future. I think one of the dimensions of trauma is that the time is a real problem at the center of trauma, and the inability to imagine the future, I think, is a huge component. Bessel van der Kolk will say, as clinicians, we're hope and imagination merchants, right? That to really, a therapist provides directionality, right? Or helps or assists in envisioning the future. And I think about, and bringing back that afterlife language is of the ability of persons of faith to imagine a future. And I think that requires imagination in a different way than we've thought about it before. Not a kind of fictive escape, right? Escape from reality, but the ability to practice different ways of imagining life in our midst. That, I think, is a real challenge. The second is what I'm calling palpable holiness. I'm also taking this away from the kind of otherworldliness or the kind of ethereal notions of holiness, but to think about how do we make tangible the appearance of the risen Christ as this tangible encounter in which we see our work with wounds as a kind of making sacred the most material things in our midst. The third, just to keep with the three P's here, the notion of persistent witness that Judith Herman writes in Trauma and Recovery, which is really known as the kind of Bible of PTSD or of trauma studies. She says, and I think it's an incredible opening of that book, where she says there's times in which trauma is very present in the public, right? Where it's on our radar, people are thinking about it. It might be just after an event that happens, and all of a sudden, you're hearing it everywhere. But there's also times in which trauma recedes from public attention. And there, I think, is the time when persons like us need to activate. If we think about the thinking in terms of a kind of persistent witness, that even when the immediate presence of trauma is not felt or there, it still remains. And so the work of the disciples or the witnesses becomes about a kind of persistency of seeing when nobody else sees, right? Of staying or lingering when others are gone. And I think this is a beautiful, I just found this image from the Brazilian artist. Of course you have this transfiguring of the barbed wire fence, right? This breaking up of that, and what do you have? What looks like the image of birds. So I think that image of the kind of razors and doves comes back again, and to think about the kind of work of resurrecting, right? Not resurrection as an event. Remember, getting away from the trauma as event, but thinking of the work of resurrecting as the work that we participate in. I want to shift just for a moment to think about trauma in a different kind of context. This is Mark Gopin, who is a peace builder who's done a lot of work in conflict reconciliation, conflict transformation studies. Presently, a lot of his work is done at the border of Syria, in the Syrian refugee camps. And so I've learned a lot from Mark about how he understands the work of conflict. And I think the intersection between trauma studies and conflict work, I think, is really helpful and kind of underconnected. And he's been in the field a long time, doing conflict reconciliation work, and he decided to write a book on peace builders. He said there's people who have been working a long time in the field, right, working in conflict situations, and he's really interested in what sustains them. How do these people, day in and day out, go into what he calls intractable situations where there's no promise of life, where particularly he says in the Middle East, where many parts of the world have an investment in keeping the conflict in the Middle East going. So he doesn't see an end in sight. Right? So you could say Mark's in a kind of Holy Saturday. He doesn't see. So he was very interested in how do these peace builders keep doing it, right? Keep doing the work. And I'm drawing from an image that he uses right at the beginning of his book, Bridges Across an Impossible Divide. And he says, he uses the image of two worlds. He said there's the one world that peace builders live in, is the world of conflict, the world of sorrow, of resentment, of suspicion, of polarization. But then there's another world, a secret world of those people who dare to touch those on the other side with their words, their deeds, and their hearts. That special world is to me, as an activist, spiritual seeker, and an analyst of conflict, a universe of enormous significance. To me, this two worlds that Mark really mapped out in his book is that these peace builders are able to see things as they are. That's the first world, right? They're not denying the conflict, the sorrow, the resentment. They're actually engaging it and confronting it. But they also, in this other world, or this special world, can see otherwise. So it's not the two worlds apart, he says, but the world of conflict, and then there's this special world within it, right, where the peace builders are imagining the world differently while they see the world as it is. And that, to me, is the kind of Holy Saturday resurrection work in which you're seeing the wounds as they are and also seeing them otherwise. And this is where I think the sacred stories, the religious imagination, in a very powerful way, gives you, or can give us, that imagination and vision of seeing what both the wounded person in front of us and the Thomas, right? These two stories kind of held together. So this question of, and down here at the bottom and the right is this statue in Derry, Northern Ireland. This question of how do these impossible divisions, how do the fingers meet, how do the hands shake, how does that happen? And Mark really found that this was a key ingredient, is the ability to both see things as they are and to have another narrative by which you can see the work of transfiguring wounds. And that, I suppose, is what I'm asking you to do with the biblical story, is to think of it as a story of promise. Its promise comes by engaging it while seeing the wounds, right? Not kind of separating the stories, but to bring them together. So I want us, for about 15 minutes, to do a table activity. And we're going to work with the two worlds. So here's the instructions. See if I can get them clearly. To identify one ingredient. So each person at the table identifies one ingredient of that special world. Okay? So what needs to be in that? So the special world is the second world. Let me go back. I've seen this thing, she moves the PowerPoint back too far. Okay. You needed to recap. So you have the one world, right? The world, the sorrow, resentment, suspicion. I want you to think about that other world, right? What is it that needs to be an ingredient that needs to be in that world that sustains in the work of addressing wounds? So, for instance, I gave you one example of courage. What do you need to have in that special world? Courage is a component. So I want you to each come up with your own word. Got this, Anthony, Jim, got this? Come up with your own word. Then I want you to share your word with somebody at the table. Then you take all the words and you make up a new word. We may need to split some of the tables because that word is going to be very long. So maybe you could say no more than 4, right? So 4 people, each of you are sharing your words. I want to make sure we got our directions clear. Then you're taking your word and you're mixing it with the 3 others and you're creating a new word. Got it? Okay, it might be helpful to put your word on a sticky note. Put your word on a sticky note. Now, I'm really interested in what words you come up with. So we're going to about 5 minutes, think of your word, and then you have to create your own word in your special world. We're going to send the mics around because I'd like for several groups to share their word. Any volunteers who are really excited about their word? Yes. Oh.
Thank you. So you'd like us to start with the ingredients of the word?
No, start with your funky new word.
Our funky new word. Okay. So our funky new word is composed of the 4 words, but not in one line.
Okay.
So it's in 2 dimensions. We start with risk at the top.
Okay.
We go down with respect. We go across with love. And we go across with peace.
Wow, cool. Woo! That's a hard act to follow. See, the beautiful thing is that people do innovations on my directions, which also shows a kind of ingredient that you need in imagining a new world is you go off script, right? Go off script. Nice. Okay, next. This table right here. Or actually, right here, and then we'll move.
Our word is levomp.
Levomp?
Levomp.
Levomp. What's in levomp?
Love, compassion, and hope.
Levomp. Levomp. See, the hope is to just walk away here with all these strange words, and then you're babbling them on the street. People ask you where you've been. Boston College. I was just at Boston College. Levomp. Levomp. Very nice. part of this is the creation of what are these ingredients and then the new vocabulary. Okay. Levump.
We came up with preemshiptance, which is persistence, dream, pride, acceptance, friendship.
Can you say the
Preem
ship
stance.
stance levump. Preem ship stance levump. Right. So these are beautiful when you hear the different words that are coming together. Any other people are proud of their words?
Yeah, we're proud of our word.
Oh, you're proud of your word. Okay.
We came up, and I really liked Tony's sort of off-the-wall word here. It's called tempothope. So tempo, empathy, and hope.
Nice.
So sometimes you've got to slow down the tempo. You've got to make sure that you're empathizing with people, and then hope will come.
Nice. Wow. Do we have another group?
We divided our table, so we have hope redoer, did I say that right? And then we had present hopeference.
That sounded like present hope for us. Is that right? Nice. Okay, one more table. Nice.
We have hospcoantapil.
Can you say that again?
Hospcoantapil.
And what are those ingredients?
Hope, spirit, passion, passion, peace, and love.
Nice. Okay, these are the words in our new special universe. I'm really hoping that people write it at the top, write your word, and then have the components. You might just put your sticky notes. I'm going to take these with me. The other thing that I'm asking you to do is to share with us. This means if we have emails, I'm going to send this out after. What is one resource that you would like to share with others in the room? I know that many of you have ministries and are connected to places that you think are important for other people to know, book recommendations. If everyone leaves one thing that they would like to share with the rest of the group, we're going to have a marvelous resource page coming out of this afternoon. So if you could take some time to write down your contribution, then we'll collect those and send them as gifts, or you'll receive them via email at a later time. So just note that I'm trying to respect the time that we have. So why don't you take just 2 or 3 minutes to write that down? I want to make sure to have one from each of you, and then we'll have a closing litany together. If you're stumped at the resources, you could answer the other question. How about that? We'll give you choices. One resource I'd like to share with others is, or one thing I bring to the work of trauma healing and resurrecting. What would that be? So some of you might have a resource like, I really want people to know about this organization, and others of you not. But one thing that you bring to this work, and it may be the word that you offered at your table. You know, I offer courage, or I offer resilience. Is that enough instruction? Okay. Okay, those are gifts that you leave with the group and with me. And I invite you. I'll stick around a little bit for questions if people want to come up and talk with me. I want to just share in closing one of the things that I offered the community, my community I'm a member of Church of the Covenant down on Newbury Street. And the Sunday after the Boston Marathon bombings, many of you know, was corresponded with a post-Easter. It was a post-Easter Sunday. And I was asked to write the litany. This is part of the litany, and this is the ending. So a litany was the kind of call and response. My question for the congregation, that of course I didn't ask them, but it's implicit in the litany, was, what does it mean to be a resurrection people in the aftermath of the events of the marathon bombings? And my church was several blocks down from the finish line, and Old South Church that was right at the finish line, came and worshiped with us that day. So it was a joint service. And so implicit in my thinking about writing the litany was, what does it mean to claim resurrection in situations right after this? So I want to just read this. You can feel free to respond if you want. It's the end of the litany that I wrote. I can provide the whole one if you would like. But this is the closing, and this is what I'll send us off with today. We rise up with a song of resurrection. It is a song best sung when two or more are gathered. It is a song that forms in us when we didn't know there was a song, a melody that soothes when we cannot find comfort, a far-off hymn that hails a new creation in and amidst earth's lamentations. Breath gives way to song, and song to symphony, and we are joined by a chorus of angels, the communion of saints who have come before us, and we participate in a cosmic symphony. Sing the song of resurrection. Christ is alive. Christ is risen. Rise up, people of God. Amen. Thank you.